Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. But there is one more big thing that I do want to hit on from the weekend. And it is a story that came from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where the mighty North Carolina Tar Heels walked into Lawrence Joel Coliseum, home of the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, and North Carolina, the school of Michael Jordan, the school of Antoine Jameson, the school of James Worthy, the school of Sam Perkins, the school of Brad Daugherty, the school of Vince Carter. They walked into Wake Forest and got their butt whipped. Final score, 98-76. And listen, I'm not going to do what you all think I'm going to do and say that Hubert Davis is not the right man for the job. I think it's entirely too early to know. But what I will say definitively, and what I truly believe, and what I have believed since the day that Roy Williams retired, North Carolina did themselves no favors by not putting together a real coaching search before eventually hiring Hubert Davis. And to be clear, this is not a criticism of Hubert Davis. This is not to say that he should be fired. This is not to say that he will never win at North Carolina. And there's no reason right now to definitively say that North Carolina has zero chance to continue its success under Hubert Davis. I'm not saying that he is definitively not the guy. But what I will also say is we now have over a half a season of a sample size, and so far it isn't good. Not saying he can't be the guy. But what I am saying is, so far, it's not very good. First of all, there's the win-loss record. Right now, North Carolina is 12-6 overall, 4-3 in a very bad ACC. And I know what some of you will say, well, Torres, come on now. 12-6 isn't that bad? And I don't necessarily disagree. 12-6 at a lot of places for a lot of coaches in their first year is not bad. But let's not forget, first of all, Hubert Davis inherited a very talented roster. They returned their leading scorer from last year, Armando Bacot, who for the Tar Heels averaged 13 points, 8 rebounds per game. He brought back their second leading scorer, Caleb Love, a former McDonald's All-American point guard, who last year as a freshman averaged 10.5 points, 3.5 assists. They brought back R.J. Davis. They brought back Kerwin Walton. They brought back Leaky Black. Oh, by the way, on top of that, they signed 3 marquee transfers. Dawson Garcia, former McDonald's All-American. Brady Manick, 4-year starter at Oklahoma. And oh, by the way, also Justin McCoy, really good player from Virginia. So it's not as though the cupboard was completely bare when Hubert Davis took over. As a matter of fact, I'd say they had the second most talented roster in the ACC. Beyond that, what's also concerning is exactly what I just said, the ACC. It's terrible this year, and North Carolina is 4-3 in a terrible ACC that is trending to get 3, maybe 4 teams in the NCAA tournament if North Carolina cannot turn it around. This is not the ACC of 4 or 5 years ago when they got 3 number 1 seeds. Virginia, 11-8, probably not going to make the NCAA tournament. Louisville, 11-8, talked about Chris Mack, probably not going to make the NCAA tournament. Syracuse, 9-10, probably not going to make the NCAA tournament. Georgia Tech, who won the ACC tournament last year, 7-10, obviously not going to make the ACC NCAA tournament. And so I bring all this up to say you're 12-6, 4-3 in a bad ACC, and what is the worst ACC of my lifetime. But beyond that, as the old saying goes, wait, there's more. Beyond that, you have to look at 12-6 doesn't look bad, but look at who they've beaten and look at who they've lost to. Right now, you could legitimately argue that in a terrible ACC, North Carolina's best wins are either at home against a Michigan team that's terrible and arguably, along with North Carolina, along with Louisville, along with Virginia, one of the most disappointing teams in college basketball. If it's not Michigan, it's probably a win over that 11-8 Virginia team that is not going to make the NCAA tournament. Right now, they have not beaten a single team that is projected to make the NCAA tournament right now as of today. But then there's the losses, and this is where you have to be concerned if you are a North Carolina Tar Heels fan. Because, as I said, 12-6 overall, here are North Carolina's losses right now at this point in the season. You lose by 9 to Purdue, okay, that's not terrible. You lose by 17 to Tennessee at Mohegan Sun Arena. You lose by 29 to Kentucky. You lose by 5 at Notre Dame. You lose by 28 earlier this week at Miami, and you lose by 22 on Saturday night against Wake Forest. And so you just look at the win-loss record. 12-6 doesn't look bad. 0 wins against teams that are projected to make the NCAA tournament. Your only wins away from Chapel Hill are at College of Charleston, at Georgia Tech, and at Boston College, 3 terrible teams. And then you have right now 6 losses, 4 of them by 15 points or more, 17 points or more, as a matter of fact. Roy Williams, the season last year that led him to retirement, he had 1 loss that bad, and it came in the NCAA tournament to Wisconsin. And so to me, with the returnees, with the results, that's where you have to be concerned, and that is where it goes back to what I opened the segment with. I don't know if Hubert Davis is the right coach. I don't know if he's the wrong coach. First of all, we obviously have recent history that says that North Carolina shouldn't just go get a North Carolina guy if he is not an elite coach. We know what happened when Dean Smith retired. You keep Bill Guthridge, then Bill Guthridge retires, then you go out and get Matt Doherty, who had 1 year's head coaching experience because he's in the family. How did that work out? You end up with Roy Williams. And so to bring it back full circle with Hubert Davis, this isn't about Hubert Davis. It is about how he got hired and the fact that North Carolina repeated history and did not go out and do a real search and did not go out and try to get the best candidate that it possibly could, okay? And to be clear, I'm not saying this is the pathway for everybody. I'm not saying if you're Washington State or if you're Texas Tech or if you're Wisconsin or if you're Florida State that you need to go throwing around bags of cash at everybody. But what I am saying is when you are one of these truly great jobs, these jobs that great coaches leave good jobs for to take the great job that is yours, if you're North Carolina, you owe it to your fans, to your alums, to your former players, to the people that have come before you to go out and shake every tree and do everything you can to get the best possible candidate that you can. I think North Carolina's decision not to do that was not only wrong, but I think it looks especially bad based on what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 months in college athletics. Because I don't know if you paid attention. I don't know if you listened to this show. But there were some pretty big freaking hires in college football. USC needed a football coach. USC could have played it safe. USC could have said, who are we really going to get? We're good. We're USC. We're this. But who are we going to get to take the USC job? And then they said, Lincoln Riley. Here's a bag of cash. What is it going to take for you to say yes to this job? And now Lincoln freaking Riley is the head coach at USC. LSU, it's the same. LSU, we know they made calls on Lincoln Riley. I think, based on reports, that they made calls to Dabo Swinney. And yeah, they got a couple no's. Yeah, they got a couple guys that said, I'm good here. Maybe if they pursued Lincoln Riley, he said, I'll take this job over your job. But then you know what they did? They called Notre Dame's head football coach and convinced him to leave Notre freaking Dame to come to LSU. Just think about how crazy that is on the most basic level of everything that we think we know about college sports. The winningest coach in the history of Notre Dame football decided to leave for LSU. And so to bring it back to North Carolina, why did they not do the same? This is North Carolina. This is one of those Cadillac blue blood jobs that you go out and you don't worry about hurting feelings. You don't worry about hurting the feelings of the guys on the current staff. You don't worry about hurting the feelings of alums or boosters or this or that who want this guy, that guy, this guy, that guy. No, you go out and get the best candidate possible. Before we get back to North Carolina, let me give you a quick side story to, I think, contextualize this even further. I remember, many of you know, wrote a book on Kentucky basketball. It's called One and Fun. One and Fun started as a big article that I did at the time for FoxSports.com. It was on John Calipari's first season at the University of Kentucky. And I interviewed everybody involved with that team. I interviewed Eric Bledsoe. I interviewed John Wall. I interviewed Patrick Patterson. I interviewed assistant coaches. I interviewed Orlando Antigua, who's back with the team right now as an assistant coach. And I interviewed John Calipari. And if you remember, John Calipari came to Kentucky from Memphis. John Calipari came to Kentucky from Memphis where he had things rolling. And John Calipari's final 4 years at Memphis, he made 3 Elite Eights, 1 Final Four, and was a player or 2 away from winning a national championship. 4 Sweet 16s, by the way. And I remember asking Coach Cal, I said, Coach, you had things rolling at Memphis. Why did you leave Memphis for Kentucky? And the answer that he said to me always stuck with me. He said, when Kentucky calls and Kentucky offers you their head job, you don't say no. Why did I pick Kentucky? I picked Kentucky because it's Kentucky. And this isn't a Kentucky segment. This isn't about Kentucky. But it's the same with North Carolina. It's the same with North Carolina. It's one of those jobs when they call, you pick up, and when they call and you offer the right amount of money, you listen and you take it. And you don't say no because it's North Carolina. And I don't know who they could have gotten, okay? I'm not going to sit here and say, well, if they called this guy on this day at this time, he would have left for North Carolina. I can't say any of that definitively. But what I will say is this. How about Mark Few? Let's just go through some names. Mark Few sounds crazy. He's never going to leave Gonzaga. He's happy there. He loves it. He's got a house right by the lake, and he goes fly fishing and all that stuff. Well, I Googled Mark Few's salary today. Mark Few's salary, according to some database, and Gonzaga's a private school, so we don't know exactly how much he makes. Mark Few's salary is $3 million a year. Mark Few's making great money. Mark Few's probably making more money than he ever could have imagined to coach a game that he coached for free. But what if Mark Few making $3 million a year, if North Carolina comes to the table? Mark Few will never leave. He'll never leave Gonzaga. He's so happy there, he would never leave. Yeah, offer him an 8-year, $80 million deal. Offer him a 10-year, $80 million deal, fully guaranteed. You're more than doubling his salary. In North Carolina, you know you can do it. Let's see how much Mark Few loves living in Spokane. Or let's see if Mark Few would consider leaving somewhere else because he's about to make life-changing money and money that he will then be able to pass down to his kids and grandkids. $3 million is great. $100 million guaranteed is better. How about Jay Wright? Jay Wright reportedly makes really good money. $6 million a year. Villanova, he's a legend, multiple national champions. They're going to build a statue if they haven't already. Makes really good money. Again, what do we got to do? 10 years, $100 million? Let's see how much he loves Villanova then. If it's not Jay Wright, I don't know. What about Billy Donovan? Billy Donovan was in college basketball, leaves for the NBA. He'll never come back to college basketball. He's tired of college basketball. Put $100 million on his plate, see if he says yes. Brad Stevens, put $100 million on his plate and see if he says yes. Now, I know he said no to the Celtics, and I know he said no to the Pacers or the Indiana Hoosiers. I get all that. But at a certain point, if you're North Carolina, you owe it to your fan base to go after these big names to see if they'll say yes. And if they say no, guess what? Hubert Davis is always going to be there. But you have to do it, and you have to do it, in my opinion, for 3 reasons. You have to do it, 1, because you never know if someone's unhappy where they currently are. And we talked about this a lot during football season. But think about Lincoln Riley. On the surface, you sit there and say, young head coach, super dynamic, cleaning up, winning the Big 12 every year. If he leaves, it's only going to be for the NFL. Well, at some point, somebody got word that maybe Lincoln Riley wasn't happy at Oklahoma, that maybe Lincoln Riley would consider leaving, that maybe Oklahoma moving to the SEC, he knew, I can't win 11 games a year like I'm doing right now if we go to the SEC. Lincoln Riley's situation changed. I talked about it with Dabo Swinney. Dabo Swinney is obviously still at Clemson, but there was a point where he at least took a call from LSU reportedly, and I think it was because he was like, these Clemson fans are crazy. I'm going to go 10-3 this year, and they want to run me out of town. And so you always have to make all these calls, whether it is to Mark Few, whether it is to Jay Wright, whether it is to Billy Donovan, whether it is to Brad Stevens, whether it is to somebody that I haven't even thought of, whether it is to Chris Holtman, whether it is to Nate Oates, whoever it is, because you never know who's unhappy where they are. You never know who's going to say yes. And here's the other thing. North Carolina is a dream job for somebody. Might not be a dream job for everybody, but again, I go back to Calipari. Calipari always imagined coaching at one. He talks about all the time. He took his UMass team in the early 90s to Kentucky, and 18, 20, 22,000 people, whatever it was, showed up at Rupp Arena, and he sat there and said, I want to coach in a place like this someday. And so when Kentucky called, he couldn't say no, and you know what? There's a really good coach somewhere. I don't know who it was. I don't know who it could have been. That at some point they walked into the Dean Dome. At some point they went to a Dean Smith coaching clinic. At some point they got on the phone with Roy Williams, and they said to themselves, man, if I ever had the chance to coach at North Carolina, I sure would. And so again, to be clear, this is not a criticism of Hubert Davis. I think it's fair to question right now, 12-6, 4-3 in a bad ACC. I would be concerned if I was a North Carolina fan. But this isn't really about Hubert Davis. This is about the fact that they had a chance. They are one of the 2 or 3 biggest brands in college basketball. They had a chance to go out and make a hire that was going to change this program forever, to go after the biggest, boldest, best names in college basketball. And instead, they played it safe. They have Hubert Davis. They're currently 12-6. And if the NCAA tournament started today, they're not making the NCAA tournament.